Ah! Sorry. Sorry. A little skittish today. What can I say? Hey, it's Tuesday, January 13th, 2009. And this is WFTL Bytes, your occasional daily FOSS and Linux news show with your host, me, Marcel Gagne. Today's press hat is brought to you by my mom. Apparently she thought I was running out of press hats and decided to go out and get me something. What do you think? Life is a cabaret. Anyway. All right, hey, I'm going to start off at the top with a little story over at the linuxjournal.com. Glenn Moody says, should we trash Vista or Bad Vista? What he's talking about is a campaign by the Free Software Foundation, badvista.fsf.org, whose purpose was to, apparently take advantage of the fact that Vista was out and that people hated it and so forth, to try push an open source and perhaps GNU Linux agenda. Anyway, every once in a while when I read these things, actually Glenn's article is really quite fascinating, and he has some interesting points about what it says over on the Bad Vista site, and whether he thinks these things are a good idea, bad idea, whether they actually accomplished anything. But every once in a while, what I really, really love when I read some of these articles is actually the comments that are at the bottom. One of the commenters actually, and this image is going to stay with me forever, one of the commenters says that he pictures an aircraft carrier with Richard Stallman walking across the deck of the FSF badvista.org or the ssbadvista.org or whatever, with a banner across the back that says mission accomplished. And I'm just not going to be able to get that out of my head. Anyway, like I said, comments sometimes are as much fun as these stories, so you just got to keep reading. Over at the Linux Planet, Bruce Byfield has a story that captures a controversy that just apparently won't go away. This one is the whole OpenOffice.org versus Go-oo or Go-00, which is the enhanced version of OpenOffice.org, which, by the way, shows up in distributions like Debian and Ubuntu and Zuse, OpenSUSE, and a whole whack of others. And people are saying that this version of OpenOffice is tainted by Mono. Tainted by Mono. I love that. Anyway, like I said, the controversy just won't go away. So Bruce Byfield examines that, and you should probably take a look at the article and read it yourself. Remember, all the links to all the stories that I'm carrying are sitting at the bottom of the video. You know how this works. The New York Times. Did you know that the New York Times had an article on Canonical and Mark Shuttleworth and the whole thing? Well, anyway, the article is called "A Software Popularist Who Doesn't Do Windows." Now, this is actually a fascinating article. It's right at the beginning. It sort of captures you. You got to keep on reading it. It goes, "They're either hapless pests or the very people." Either hapless pests, that's hard to say, or the very people capable of overthrowing Windows. Whoosh, slam dunk. Hey, it's a fascinating story, but over at desktoplinux.com, Henry Kingman takes it apart and says that what it's actually doing is damning with faint praise. However, it's really kind of neat to see that much paper or that much space devoted to the New York Times to talk about Ubuntu, Linux. It's quite fascinating, actually. Over at the Linux Foundation website, Jim Zenlin, in his blog, talks about CES. I wish I could have gone to CES. I love CES. I've been there years. But anyway, he talks about CES and how it was absolutely, virtually impossible to find Linux anywhere on the show floor, except that Linux was everywhere. Remember that song by Mojo Nixon a number of years ago? Linux is everywhere, man. Except it was Elvis is everywhere. Elvis is everywhere, man. That's a really fun song. That was a long time ago. Anyway, what he points out are the fact that you've got televisions out there, you've got desktop recorders out there, you've got cell phones, you've got mobile devices of different types, laptops, you name it, all of them are running Linux. In fact, it was practically impossible to walk across the CES trade floor without tripping over Linux somewhere in some device. Remember what I talked about when I said comments were far more interesting sometimes, or at least as interesting sometimes as the article? Because comments sort of build on the article, don't they? One of the commenters actually said this, quote, "The way all these commercial vendors are keeping Linux under the radar is not a positive sign at all." This is in response to Jim's blog entry. "It's a sign of timidity and perhaps deceit, because Redmond still has the industry short hairs in a tight grip." Take that, will ya? Anyway, fascinating. Over Internet News, Sean Michael Kerner, who I always want to call Sean Michael Kernel, says that Fedora 11 got its name. Yes, Fedora 11 is going to be called Leonidas and his band of 300. Have you guys seen 300? I haven't seen 300 yet. Is it worth checking out? You know, it's one of those videos worth renting. Anyway, I'm digressing here. It beat out, are you ready for this? These are the names it beat out. It beat out Blarney, Brasilia, Duchess, Claypool, Urialis, Indomitable, and Zamponi. That's not Zamboni, that machine that cleans the ice at hockey games, but Zamponi. And apparently it also beat out my choice, which was Icky Icky Fatang Van Zoopzausen. My apologies to Monty Python, as if Monty Python is ever looking for anyone to apologize to them. Anyway, that's Fedora's new name. There you go. And finally, Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. WFTL, follow me on Twitter. No, actually, this is actually follow me for Bash, B-A-S-H. Yes, there's Bash Cookbook, B-A-S-H-C-O-O-K-B-O-O-K. Anyway, the links are at the bottom. You know how this works. Has its own Twitter page. Yes, you can learn Bash shell programming in 140 characters or less per day. This is actually one of the ones that's worth following. I mean, you know, lots of information in 140 characters. Who could say no? And on that note, I think I'm done. And you know, you never saw me mention coffee today. Amazing, isn't it? Coffee. I think I need one. Bye. Oh, and thanks, Mom.